Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. We're having a little technical difficulties. Give me just a second.
Minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. Tonight's show is sponsored by 1UP Adventures and ParamotorProps.com. Sharing their passion for flight on adventures around the world, they make a trip of a lifetime accessible for you. They are a supplier of carbon fiber propellers in the U.S. at extremely low prices and have become a leader in the country for getting tandem training and helping to obtain your required tandem exemption. Located just outside of Lansing, Michigan, Fly My PPG is a USPPA ASC certified paramotor training facility offering a full-service paramotor training experience with 3 on-site instructors and class sizes that are limited to 6 students, all on a beautiful, private 90-acre airport. Fly My PPG offers on-site lodging and RV camping. Space is limited, so don't wait to make your reservation. Contact Mike Cotter or Justin Fox. And don't miss out on the upcoming scheduled classes combining the efforts of 1UP Adventures and Fly My PPG at Wauchula Airport, January 23rd through 31st, February 20th through 28th, and March 20th through the 28th. Check out their website to get your spot before those are filled. Check out Paraswag USA, your complete powered paragliding gear source, providing you with an extremely light and extremely affordable Revel 2 RS Paramotor from Evo Aviation, as well as other gear and accessories, everything you need to get started in powered paragliding. Take the next big step in your paramotor training at Skylab Paramotor SIV. Here, paramotor pilots of all skill levels will learn collapse recovery and advanced maneuvers. Top-of-the-line advanced instruction in the safest environment possible with a full line of rental gear. Wisconsin Flight Sports makes it affordable and accessible for you to get your paramotor training in a safe way. In addition to their paramotoring gear, they can also help you design your own custom Icaro Solar X helmet to your specifications. Don't wait weeks to get your paramotor. They are in stock with SkyMax Paramotors, one of the best paramotors available, and they are ready to be shipped to you today. Wisconsin Flight Sports has just also announced a special class in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Go to their website for more details. Celebrating their 10th anniversary, the team at Fly PPG discovered power paragliding has helped people from around the world to get into our great sport. They are the Midwest importer and distributor of Adventure Paramotors, trikes, and wings. They offer tandem flights and a 7-day training certification program. Come out to their 48-acre farm in Fowlers, Illinois to see why it is called the Field of Dream. PPG Smoke has everything you need, from paramotor float systems to chase cameras, to smoke systems to strobe systems. PPG Smoke has so much more of what you need to take your paramotoring adventures to the next level. Visit their website at ppgsmoke.com. Aviator Paramotor has become a cornerstone for paramotor training throughout the country, while offering its students some of the top paramotoring equipment in the land. With 2 locations in beautiful Florida, class availability has never been more convenient. With raving reviews, Lone Star Paramotor has become one of the most sought-out paramotor schools in the South near San Antonio, Texas, offering foot launching and trike training classes and so much more. They are a USPPA certified flight school. Wicked Wings logos can help you have your own custom glider with a logo having 1 or more colors. Get all the information you need to order your logo today on the Our Paramotor Nation website. Light up the skies with PPG lights and make one heck of an impression with countless patterns and colors on your paramotor. No aircraft can miss seeing you when you are flying at twilight with PPG lights. Make sure you are checking out the Our Paramotor Nation website to see all the upcoming shows, all the past shows, and visit all of our sponsors. And now, let's get started with this week's episode of Our Paramotor Nation. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. First of all, sorry about the technical difficulties. Thank you for being patient through that. As you saw there, tonight's show is in memory and in honor of our friend, world record holder, Lori Kadakis. Lori was a great pilot, a really great person, meant a lot to a lot of people, and just a horrible, tragic accident that happened this week. And we're keeping him, his friends, his family, all in our prayers. A good friend of his is also a very good friend of mine, a person that was the co-founder of this show, Brandon McLeod, and had a lot of conversations with Brandon this week. And I took a couple notes just to say a few words about Lori. Brandon's words about Lori Kadakis when I asked him were these. Lori was as passionate about paramotoring and paragliding as anyone he has ever seen. He was always there to answer questions and always was very friendly. For everything he did, he was always humble. He never had an ego. He always thought of you first, and he was the type of person who tried to bring people together. At only 34 years of age, he was far wiser than what his age really said. Lori will be very, very missed. But I'm sure Lori would want us to keep moving on and keep flying. That's what his purpose was. So from one world record holder to another, we have our show this evening, and our show this evening is going to be an amazing show. It's with several people joining us, led the way by the new world record holder himself, Harley Milne, along with all of his crew. So we're going to welcome all of them here in a second. I do want to make a couple very brief announcements. Next week's show is our Christmas Spectacular. We have a lot of fun planned for you, so please make sure you come back in for that show as well. There is a ton of giveaways that are going to be done. I'm guessing at least 20. Hopefully not going over 20, otherwise it's going to be a very long show of giveaways, but there's a very good chance you could win something. All of our sponsors are very, very generous. And it's these people, these companies, these schools, these merchants. These are the people that I would hope you would go and sponsor, or not sponsor, but rather reciprocate with. You can find all of their information on the Our Paramotor Nation website. One of the things that you might be able to win is a t-shirt just like this that I absolutely love. And this is from Paris Swag, Fly or Die. Okay. So you have a chance of winning this. And if you don't win it, go on to the Paris Swag website. You got a chance to win this too. There you go. The other show I'm going to talk about is the show after that, and that is with Elena Honeycutt. You know, for as horrible as a lot of people have had this year, she's had a pretty good year, so she's going to talk about that. So let's get 2020 behind us, move on to 2021, because there's a lot of amazing things happening in 2021. And the first thing I'll mention is we have a fly-in already with dates, and that's why I'm wearing my Bad Apple shirt from the very last Bad Apples fly-in, and those dates are going to be May 13th through the 16th. So make sure you're in attendance for that if you can make it to it. All right, enough of the announcements. Let's get on with the show. This could be a very long show. I'm not going to rush the show. We're not going to fit this into 1 hour, so please stay around. It's going to be an amazing show because we've got some amazing people have done an extraordinary thing, and we want to take the time and really hear all about this adventure. Let's start off with Harley Milne. Harley, how are you, sir? Oh, by the way, I want to also say hi to my friends, Trike Flyer Dave Ruff and John Ripman riding.
What's up, guys?
All right.
Your usual suspects, right?
How are you doing, Harley? Good?
Great. Thank you so much for having us on tonight.
Absolutely. And with you have Ray Pierce, who was your crew chief, and also Tom Pierce, who was one of the crewmen, right?
Yep. Tom here had a very special role. I'm sure he'll talk about it more, but I couldn't have been more fortunate to have both brothers with me.
Awesome. Next is Jeffrey Miller, the team doctor, is joining us as well. Jeffrey, welcome to Our Paramotor Nation.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We have Dave is here. Dave Word, he is our meteorologist who was really, integral part of this whole mission. Dave, welcome to Our Paramotor Nation.
It's an honor to be here, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anthony Peregrino, also known as Anthony Dalton, is his real name. There he is. He is a crewman. He is a crewman. Some people may be wondering who's the imposter among us, but Anthony is a crewman. Anthony, thank you for joining us this evening.
Nice to be here.
And then we also have Cynthia Lecomte is here. Hey, Cynthia. She was the media coordinator, right? Was that your official title? Media coordinator?
Oh, what was my, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Say the full title you had.
I don't remember my title. It was something like
the public relations
public
director.
relations director.
That sounds better. I like that. I like that. Greg Anthony Harris is happens to be right in the same room as her, so that worked out great. And Greg was the team photographer, right?
That's right. Yeah. Running around trying to get all the important stuff before Harley took off every day. It was an interesting challenge for sure.
He caught all the drama.
Yeah.
So we're going to be hearing from every one of these people tonight because everybody's got a different story of this amazing journey that I believe lasted 9 days. Correct, Harley? 9 days?
Yeah, it's still going on, but yeah, 9 days.
Time has stopped. Greg, you put out a little video today. Do you want to talk about that little video that you put out on Facebook and on your YouTube channel?
Sure, very quickly. Yeah. So I've been putting together some pictures of some of our adventures, and I've actually made some prints that I'm selling on the website. And I wanted the first print to actually to donate it to this show tonight. So when we do the giveaways later on, one of those guys can actually choose one of the prints off the website, and we'll send it out to them.
Now, when you say prints, you're talking about these right here. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
We're not seeing it yet.
There
you go.
Yeah, so this is Cynthia flying over the Dead Sea in Israel. This is like a big cave, a big underwater cave, and you couldn't see the bottom of it, so it went down quite a way there. That was pretty cool.
Beyond the Jordan border. Yeah,
so that if you follow that crack in the land all the way to the end, where the river, I guess, meets the sea, that's the border between Israel and Jordan. So you can very easily cross the border there. This is over the Dead Sea. There's a couple there. I really hope that he was proposing to her. That's a story I like to stick with. But there's a couple on the ground there, and these guys fly around them.
These limited edition prints are absolutely gorgeous. There's two others we'll take a look at as well.
That's Cynthia flying over Gold Canyon.
You're lying. That is not Cynthia flying.
What's that?
It's not Cynthia flying, is it?
Yeah, that's Cynthia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recognize that.
All right, easy. Calm down.
No, the peak. Gold Canyon.
That's me flying over Pinal Air Park in Arizona. That was a special moment. I've been waiting for a while to do that flight. Yeah, so they can, whoever wins can take their pick, and we'll send it straight out to them.
I want to personally make a testimony here. I got one of these, and I love this picture. So I know you can see reflections of my lake there, but my wife and I are, as some of you may know, we're building a house right now. We've already got a place picked out. We have no idea where everything else in our house is going to go, but we know where that picture is going. So we're very excited. It's beautiful. Someone is going to be lucky enough to win that tonight. And Ripman's putting everybody's name in the chat, so you've got to stay active in the chat to go ahead and have a chance of winning this prize tonight. That's an amazing prize. Harley, how are you?
I'm still good.
You had mentioned some prizes too that you had to give away as well.
Yeah, so some of my sponsors have been gracious enough to provide us with a little bit of swag, some of which you see us wearing. So a couple of Corsair t-shirts, hats. And then we have a Helix t-shirt. Pull those in so we can see. I think we got a couple Blackhawk ones, and the same as I've got some Corsair ones. So plenty of shirts to go around, and hopefully you'll give them away tonight.
That's extremely generous of you. Now, you just mentioned some of your sponsors, so maybe this is a good time, because none of this could have been possible without the sponsorship help that you had. And also, I know there was a couple people that helped you along the way that you weren't expecting. Do you want to take a moment to mention them? And then we're going to get into this whole, how this started, when this started, and how it actually begun.
Sure. I mean, all the sponsors are actually listed on 50xchallenge.info. And so there's a complete list there, but definitely the primary sponsors were Blackhawk Paramotor, who provided the frame and worked with Corsair Motors to provide the engine that we flew. Helix props went to great lengths to actually test a couple props specifically for this trip to provide us the most fuel efficiency and the most amount of thrust that we could possibly get at the lowest fuel cost. And then, of course, Paradrenaline provided us with the Dudak Hadron 3 that we flew. So they were all the primary sponsors, and we were also gracious enough through Pierce at Off-Grid Aviation, who provided the cruise control throttle, which turned out to be a huge hit for me. Absolutely amazing. So hopefully I haven't missed anybody else. I mean, the comms came through Micro Avionics and Wisconsin Flight Sports, and there were some other smaller sponsors that are listed on the website.
I know there's a gentleman in Texas that kind of helped out in sort of a way as well.
Yeah, so I should mention Ron and Houston. Am I getting this right? Hopefully I'm not missing this out.
Ron Torn of Lone Star Paramotor.
Thank you very much. So Ron helped out. Unfortunately, the parts that we sent him never did arrive, but he was kind enough to entertain Cynthia and Tom for a little while. Cynthia, you'll have to help me out. I forget the gentleman's name, but we actually, because I chopped some lines, we were short of a glider, and we were lent a Hadron 20 meter. We didn't actually end up flying it, which is why my memory is a little bit fuzzy, but that's been great. And then even Shannon Michaels came through with getting some lines created for us, and I haven't got them yet because we flew too fast. So they were sitting in Pensacola with one other person that I also unfortunately don't have the name with me, but we're going to try and pick them up and meet them in person on the way back.
Well, the gentleman you're thinking of is known in the community as Chris Airfoil.
Thank you.
He's the one that lent the H3, the Hadron 20 meter. Very, very appreciated. Yeah.
You know, I mentioned a few moments ago, thank you, Cynthia. I mentioned a few moments ago about Lori being very humble, in Brandon's words. And I got to say the same thing about Harley. He's extremely humble. And through this whole thing, you know, he said, I may have been the one that was flying, but this was a huge team effort. It really was. So I hope you still feel that way, Harley, correct? You still feel that way?
I absolutely feel that way. And it's,
sure. All right.
It kind of brings me to tears thinking about it. And there's a story behind it. And hopefully Ray will talk about some of it.
Okay. I want to say thank you very quickly to Chris Fenimore for the $20 donation to the show. Really appreciate that, Chris. God knows I'm going to need it because we're going to have a lot of things to ship out from this house next week, and it's going to cost quite a bit. So thank you for the donation to the show. Really appreciate that. Let's get into it, Harley. You when did this first? I mean, you first of all set the bar huge and high with the 50X challenge, going 50 states across the entire nation just a year ago, starting in Hawaii, ending in Alaska. At what point did you think I can go across this whole thing in one shot?
It really didn't occur to me until people started asking when I hit Wisconsin, right? So I think I was already, 30, maybe 35 states in by that point. And one of the questions that that EA asked me in an interview I did with him was, well, what's next?
Mhm.
I kind of flippantly said, well, I don't know, maybe start over again and try and fly directly across the country. And I said it very much tongue in cheek, not really thinking it was going to come together.
It's funny you said that because that's one of my questions. What's next? Yeah, but we'll ask that question later on in the hour.
50 countries.
50 countries. Very good.
North to south.
That might be easier, I think, north to south. You can do that in 3 states if you start on the West Coast. All right. So you called up Ray Pierce and you said, I need some help. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Ray should tell the story. I really did. September, like so many of us, we've had a rough year, and I was back in California, and I had actually submitted the application to Guinness World Records to do the coast to coast back in July, but that's a very, very long process, and I didn't really think I was going to try and pull the trigger on this year. And September came around, and of course we'd had all the wildfires in California, and so business was at an all-time low. And I finally said, I got to do something. I can't just sit here. And so I gave Ray a call, and he said yes. So I'll let Ray tell the story for me, because without Ray saying yes, I don't know how this thing would have started.
Well, it was something I needed to. It was the oil business that I've been in my entire life. I'm 4-generation-old oil man, so it's been my great grandparents started it all. And the oil price has been so depressed for the last year that I'm practically bankrupt on my company is anyway. Personally, I'm not completely broke, but my company's pretty much done for. It's kind of the same thing Harley's got going on. If the phone stops ringing, you're not got no money coming in, what are you going to do to keep from going insane, sitting and feeling miserable about yourself? So heck yeah, I jumped in, all in. I built myself a paracamper so I could chase Harley across the country, and I flew the whole family down here to Florida when it was all over, and we've been running around seeing the sights ever since. And I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. This has been amazing.
Tom, what was your role in all of this?
I had quite a few roles, really. I was in charge of all the electronics, making sure everything's charged, from the flight recorders, the ADSB, the battery packs, his phone and iPad, strobes, all of that needed charged, sometimes in the middle of the day between flights, at the end of the day. So I was taking care of that. I was driving the main ground crew vehicle, which was Harley's camper. So that's living space, cooking space, dealing with picking up food, fuel, all that kind of logistics every day.
I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. Did anything happen that you went, oh crap, I dropped the ball on that one, he's going to be pissed?
Probably the maple syrup hitting the floor.
Okay, well, that may have been the worst thing. I don't know.
It's my fault.
I seem to remember one day that Harley went up without the GPS tracker?
Tom wasn't even there for that one. He was off doing another errand. So yeah, that wouldn't be me.
Garmin InReach,
they were InReach
backup for everyone out there in the world to be able to watch live.
It followed very closely. It was just a few inches off the ground instead.
If the maple syrup was the worst thing that happened, I think you did your job well. Okay. Anthony Dalton played a small role in all this. Anthony, talk to us about where you fit in this puzzle.
Well, I came in kind of late, but actually I had talked to Harley a couple months back when he had mentioned he was going to take off from coast to coast, and he mentioned obviously the where he would take off is from San Diego. So I just kind of I wanted to give him some pointers on maybe some beaches, some areas, some LZs or something he can take off from. Didn't put a whole lot of information or work towards it until I think he was seeking one of the military bases down south. and he was having trouble, obviously, going through the bureaucracy of trying to contact and speak with the right people to allow him to take off from there. And maybe a month or two went by, and out next, talking to him again, he was saying he was having some trouble. So I said, let me take a look. And I was able to see right there by the military base was the YMCA surf camp. Kyle down there was really kind enough to listen to what I had to say about the event, and he came on board. So it didn't really come to fruition until maybe the week of Thanksgiving, when Harley said, "Okay, we're all coming down Thanksgiving," and I picked up Cynthia and Greg from the airport and put them up in my house here, and then Harley and Ray and Tom came down the next day in their trailers, and so they got this, they stayed on the side of my houses and so forth. But it kind of dawned on me about Monday or Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving, that I haven't talked to the guy Kyle at the YMCA in a while, and Harley's looking to take off Sunday morning or Monday morning, and we hadn't quite figured out the details on showing up the day before and so forth. But anyway, I got a hold of him. It turned out great. We ended up getting there the day before, staged there in their parking lot, and got to check out the beach the night before and stuff. So it turned out great. Actually, it was quite everything was really lined up. So
I've seen a lot of pictures from the entire event on Facebook, and probably one of my favorite pictures, you wouldn't even think about it, is a picture of the entire crew sitting there. It looked like in maybe your patio or around a fire pit. And I looked at them like, this is a historic moment. This is it. This is the calm before the storm. Take one last breath, guys, because you're about to go down a huge roller coaster. And good luck to you. And Cynthia's nodding, and Greg's like, yeah, that sounds about right. So that was awesome. I want to ask Jeffrey Miller, who was the team doctor. I think you had the easiest job of everybody. Isn't that right?
I did. The team was such a success. They never had to call me once. My role was very limited. I was I agreed to make myself available 24/7 via teleconference, and with the recent deregulation, I could literally practice in any state I wanted to while they were on their way. So that made it kind of nice. And I provided them with a small medical kit and some oxygen. And other than that, they did all the good work of keeping themselves healthy. So I ended up really not having to do much of anything. So.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll hope to see you again on another show.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you did your job. You did what you needed to do, exactly what Harley wanted. Let's talk about Dave Wirt for a second. So Dave's our meteorologist, and Dave had the most important job possibly. He was the go, no-go for launch and everything in between all the way to the very end. So Dave, what were you looking at in weather? What made this the day to do it? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think that's very gracious of you to say that's one of the most important things. This team has been amazing from end to end. Any one of those threads could have been pulled and this thing would have unraveled. So my job was basically to make absolutely sure as much as possible Harley would be safe. So every morning we would go through the wind data, the threat of precipitation, where the clouds would be, the way that the winds would be hitting, especially that terrain in the southwestern part of the United States. He had 3 major weather systems to have to thread himself through. And I was kind of telling him, it's like riding a wave. If you're a surfer, you got to get on the wave if you're going to move with it. If you miss it, you're going to lose a couple of days. And he threaded every single one of those 3 waves perfectly. The first one was a cold front that was coming south out of the upper Midwest through the central and high plains into the southern plains. And when that system moves south, it then moves west. And so you've got easterly winds crossing really high terrain, and it creates all types of mountain waves and turbulence. And he had to move really high to get above all that, and also thread the needles as far as not staying downwind of the high ridges where he'd pick up the rotors. So one day in particular, he flew at about 12 to 14,000 feet, 17 degrees Fahrenheit, almost all day long. You know, Ray and I were looking at it, and we're trying to see. I was texting Ray saying, "Hey, have you heard from Harley?" Because I'm freaking out, thinking maybe he froze and he's not moving and he's just holding his line perfectly. But he was fine up there. I mean, he was super cold, but he got through that. That was the first system. The next system was high winds when a second cold front came through in Texas, and he threaded needle before the first cold front and the second cold front. So he's only waylaid one day. And then he rode the next system ahead of the next big low pressure system that developed in the Western Gulf of Mexico and moved up over that second cold front and got ahead of it enough that he could get to the East Coast and make the trip in basically 8 days. He stopped he could have made the coast in 8 days. And I'll leave it up to Harley as to what happened on the 9th day and why he waited. He could have done it in 8. So I can't imagine how many records were set, but this guy is amazing.
I think Cynthia booked the news crew for the 9th day. That's why he had to wait an extra day.
That's true. He was only 40 miles away from the coast. He had a couple of hours. He could easily have done it. The winds were at his back on a post-cold front type of environment. He could have easily done it, but he chose to make this documented in a way that would be really resounding, and kudos to him and the rest of the team.
Dave, I don't know your background so much more than meteorologist, but do you fly paramotors or anything like that?
I do. I was a meteorologist for the National Weather Service for 36 years. And so I learned about a year ago in February at Aviator. And so it's the first time in my life where I've experienced the weather in a way that made me really appreciate how incredibly sensitive paramotoring is to weather and accurate forecasting. So it was an honor to be asked by Harley to be part of the team. And I'm just glad that all of the modeling, the high resolution data sets that we were using came to fruition in a way that supported the event. Sometimes the doctor gets a chainsaw to do a surgery. The models this time worked really well that we were able to use a scalpel, and it worked really well as far as the accuracy in time and space of the meteorological forecast. So it worked out really well. I cannot take the credit for that. I was just the one using the scalpel, but we had the tools given to us to make it work well.
All right, Dave, I've just paused the show. No one else can hear, it's just you and I right now. The other, they're paused, they can't hear a thing, and the chat's wondering what just happened to the show. So just a question between the two of us. Yeah. Did you think when it was 17 degrees and he's going almost 90 miles an hour, did you ever think to yourself, I may kill this guy? But
he chose to go up that high. He knew it would be that cold. I gave him the wind and the temperature forecast, but he wanted to make the good ground, and he had the equipment and the covering to be able to do it. And he had to make the decision. We were talking in the morning. At the end of the day, you have to make that decision as to where you're comfortable and where you'll be safe. I think he's superhuman personally.
Follow-up question again, everybody's paused. It's just you and I. Did you ever think to yourself, this guy's insane?
I thought he was superhuman. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis. It was like the best Dolby sound movie. Every day watching him in real time and that telemetry stuff is coming in, I was amazed.
All right, I'm gonna bring everybody back in now. Hey, everybody, sorry about the technical difficulties there. Back.
Hey, Dave, things went real silent there for a second.
Sorry about that. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I want to ask Greg and Cynthia to unmute themselves. So, what was the date that this all started? The launch date when Dave gave the go ahead. We're going this morning. Do you remember the date of that? I'm putting you guys on the spot. Does anybody remember the date?
It was a Sunday.
Okay. There we go. We're kicking off on Sunday.
Yeah.
You guys are standing at the beach. You've got your cameras rolling. What's the tone like?
Wow. It was definitely exciting. There was a lot of tension because we knew we had to get Harley in the sky, and obviously first launch is super important and significant. So all the footage was going to be of that first launch. So and it was going to be a hard, and you know, Harley's carrying so much weight, and it was the first time he was taking off with all of his gear on him. So obviously it's like it's that make or break moment, you know. So definitely, and we're not in our groove yet. This is the first test for everything, really. So I think, you know, as time progressed, we all kind of fell into our groove and we found our rhythm together as a team. But on the first launch, it's like, all right, is this going to work? Or is it like, are we actually going to make this happen? Or what's going to happen right now? And obviously, like Harley, you can, I think everybody can talk about the conditions on the beach that day. You know, we had to analyze the situation there. There was, you know, taking off from sand, the tides were not low, so there wasn't that much beach to take off from. There was a fence.
A high fence.
A high fence of barbed wire at the top of it.
Guys, help me out. Like there was a lot of stuff going on there that you know, had us be very, very focused that day.
It's funny, when about 7 days later, you ran to a good friend of mine named Dave Ruff, and his words to me on the phone were, they are a well-oiled machine. So I'm sure at some point, as you said, we weren't sure, we didn't have the groove down just yet, but at some point you guys definitely did. So once he finally took off, did you guys look at each other and say, okay, now what do we do? What's next? Was there a moment like that, or we're just like, okay, we got to go?
I don't know who else wants.
There was a moment just after takeoff, and it was a little sketch for a few seconds, and it was just a case of breathing and waiting for him to really start gaining some altitude. I don't know if you want to talk, how much you want to talk about that, Harley, but I'll leave that in your capable hands.
Before he does, so I arranged to have a couple of ugly raptors out there with us. So it was myself, Mike D, and Alfredo launching with Harley. In fact, we were to launch first, and then kind of be in the background, and then watch his launch. And then he's going to circle around and make sure that he covers over the ocean, and then start to head out. And we were just going to go fly, 25 miles out, and then wave goodbye and turn around and go back. But for me, honestly, as soon as he took off and we were up in the air, and if you look at the picture behind me, it's a gorgeous sunrise, and that's Harley in the background there.
Beautiful.
For me, it was a huge relief because my job was done. I mean, really, all I had to do was just watch. It can kind of follow them, see what's going on. But the fact that one thing I really noticed, and I thought it was really cool, is Harley full confidence in his crew. I mean, he left everybody specific assignments, and they went and did it, and they handled it. There wasn't any micromanaging. He was basically just asking everybody, okay, where do I go next? What do I do? And to some degree, you know what I mean? Because everybody did their part, and I thought it was pretty awesome. So I was quite a bit relieved when he flew away, and I had to come and land, and then just get a watch from the ground, from the screen, from the posts, and so forth. But I couldn't help but feel for the rest of the team on the ground and so forth. They've got 7, 8, 10, 15 days to work with it, and track him and keep him in the air. So it was pretty impressive.
Thank you, Anthony. So I want to go in with Harley and start this conversation. And anybody that's on the panel who, if there was a moment that really took you in, or you want to interject here, let's go through the timeline. Day one, Harley, you're launching, you got all this gear on. The moment they get off the ground, what's your first thought? Am I really doing this? Holy crap. What did I just decide to get myself into? Where were you in your mind at that point?
I mean, it had sort of leading up to the launch, it was clearly a very daunting task. I mean, I've flown a couple 100 miles, but nothing, wasn't, I've done several days of flying in a row where your body breaks down and you get more sore, but nothing anywhere close to this. So I was pretty concerned that with the amount of weight that I was taking off with, around about 90 pounds was pretty substantial. And of course, taking off on the beach was going to be a big deal. I think if I take a small step back from that, we had done the flight the day before. In fact, if I even take a small step further back from that, we had talked to Dave, sort of every couple of days leading up to figuring out when we would pull the trigger. And we knew we would get about a 16-day window, but we wouldn't get any real accuracy until we were within sort of a 5 to 7 day window. And, Dave finally gave us, what he thought was an approximate date, which would be a launch, say 25th or the 26th. And then, we pulled the trigger. I said, we're all positioning. And so we came from the respective areas, got down to Anthony's place. And then, of course, the weather model looked like it needed some adjustment. And so that move where we had a choice of either going the Sunday or the Monday. And, this is where Ray's been a critical sounding board for me every step of the way, which is, we had to bounce back and forth. Should we throw away a day and keep the trip shorter, or do we keep one day where if all hell breaks loose that we can keep going and not lose the weather? And ultimately that was the decision we made and took off. And as has been alluded to, I think we're going to try and keep this one in the bag for as long as we can, because I think it's going to be a very big part of the story of some of what happened on that launch, leaving that beach. And really only those of us who are there have seen just how bad it nearly went. It was absolutely crazy. And I mean, I remember that those first few moments, and in the back of my head, I could see everybody gasping with what was going on.
I've spoken a couple times to my friend Greg Anthony Harris, and I've tried to get some details out of him, and he's very tight-lipped. And as close as we are, he has said to me, Dave, we'll talk about some of it on the show, and some of it we won't, and some of it you're going to have to stick around for the documentary. So anybody that knows Greg's video, he does an amazing job, and this is going to be an amazing documentary. Greg, correct me, but I think you said sometime in the summer of 21, correct?
I'm hoping for a summer release in 2021. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. We're looking into sort of some funding avenues for that as well. So yeah, that's my goal. We'll certainly start having some teaser trailers and trailers out by kind of May-ish, something like that. I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of editing ahead of me, and it's just me. So yeah, it's going to be summer. I think that's my dream, is to have it done by the summer.
Right.
But it's got to be right. There's so much happened. I mean, I could quite easily cut together a 3-hour documentary and you'd watch the whole thing. Like, there's just so much drama. It's the most difficult part of putting this film together is, what do I leave out? And that's going to be the hardest part of this whole thing.
I think you'll get one very clear nod from everyone if I said that the whole trip was nearly over in about the first 25 seconds.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are you going to leave us hanging, or are you going to expand on that?
We're leaving you hanging right there. Literally was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, leave him there, man. That's awesome.
I could take a muddy boot and step in my birthday cake. Okay. I mean, that's really all right. Wow. We'll wait and see. My next question, Harley, you may not want to answer then, was, let's talk about some of the hurdles that you faced along the way. I know a couple of them, but there's some amazing, crazy stories that you have, and if anybody wants to chime in and expand upon them, go for it. What was the first big hurdle?
In the planning, there were 3 specific sections of the route that I was particularly concerned about, that if something went wrong, if I lost an engine, where was I going to go? Try and land safely, be able to launch again, and be able to have the crew get to me. And if you've looked at the route that we actually flew, it's even more scary than the planned route, because the planned route had a couple of these areas that were difficult to get to and a long way away from getting help. And so the very first flight I knew was very, very critical, because if we didn't catch the weather correctly, we were going to get stuck on the San Diego side with wind coming from the east instead of pushing us from the west. And so we'd get stuck there, or worse, land up with all the road and the really bad weather to get there. And then even getting over the top of it, it's a bit of a climb, and you've got to burn some fuel to get there. And so the more fuel that you're burning to get to that altitude, so you're light enough to keep pushing, then you've got, of course, all these mountain ranges in the way. So I knew the first, we had planned sort of an out every 25 miles and a refueling every 50, which we used probably half as many refueling locations and only used one of the out locations for landing purposes because we ran out of time, ran out of light that day. So for me, getting through that very first flight, trying to make 75 or more miles, and that very first flight was a very critical start point.
Okay. Throughout the whole trip, did you, by the way, I want to say this too, for everybody that's in the chat, there's I think Dave and John's got at least 15 questions sitting up there waiting for me. We will get to them. I promise you we will get to them. I just want to keep the flow going, and then we'll go back and we'll ask them, especially if we haven't already touched upon it. And by the way, we've got 9 things to give away tonight. You got to stay around, because if you don't claim your prize, you're not getting it. We'll go on to someone else quickly. Was there ever a point where you said, I'm in over my head, I shouldn't have done this, and I don't know if this is going to happen? And then the follow-up question to that is, at what point did you say, I think I'm going to actually do this?
I'm not sure he ever had the I think I'm in over my head thing. It was grit and determination. But the definite, I think I have this, was probably when we left Texas, getting high. He was starting to warm up. He wasn't quite as miserable anymore. That's it. Yeah. I don't think there was any quit in him. He was going to, we were going to have to check him into an ER to make him stop. That was about the only way.
All right. So Harley, what was the most miserable part about this whole thing? Was it 17 degrees?
No, the most miserable part was it ending.
Or the day we were stuck on the ground in Texas from the wind. Nobody was having any fun. We all wanted a day off about then. That wasn't a day off. Everybody was too antsy and wanting to get going.
The worst day by far for me was sitting on the ground in Texas after that incredible flight, right? We did 173 miles in 2 hours and 40 minutes. I was at 12,500 feet doing 90 miles an hour. And, these guys they spent the extra half an hour talking to Anthony Vella because they knew they weren't going to catch me anyway. Yeah. And really, I think we know this now looking back, right? If we had been able to, increase our turnaround times down, we only needed 30 more minutes. That if we'd had 30 to 45 more minutes of flying time available to us on that day, we wouldn't have got stuck in that hole for 24 hours. So for me, it was very, very miserable, because also the weather the next day was looking absolutely horrific. And we had also tried, and we broke more equipment. It didn't go well. And there's one particular video where Ray's trying to keep me stable, and it went horribly wrong, and both of us should have known it at that moment, but it went badly.
It's one of those, when you see it, you're going to be like, what the hell were you thinking? What did you think was going to happen? It was one of those that we're going to have to put in the documentary with one of those Homer Simpson dole moments.
We tried. It was 20-mile-an-hour winds pretty much. I think we measured when we did the live stream for a few minutes there, and the chill factor was particularly bad. We were all having to wear gloves just to stay warm enough to work. And the lowest the wind got was about 8 miles an hour, but it was averaging sort of in that 12 to 15 mile an hour winds with strong gusts going up to 20. And it's just, some of us have launched in that kind of weather before, but this was particularly dangerous that morning. And I was mad at myself for not pulling it off. I think in hindsight, yeah, we were lucky we didn't go, because with flying a 22 wing in that weather was just too much. I could have been blown 10 miles away in the wrong direction. So we having to sit there. I think these guys knew it was the first time they'd seen me like feeling very frustrated that we were sitting still.
So I want to ask a question to Jeff and to Dave and get them a little more involved here for a second. And ultimately, it's Ray's decision as the crew chief, but we have the expert on the weather and the expert as the doctor for Dave and Jeff. Was there ever a time that you advised Harley or Ray, guys, it's not a good idea to fly right now? He may get hypothermia. The weather conditions are turning. Is there ever a time that you said, this isn't a good day to fly, but Harley said, I'm doing it anyhow?
Well, I guess I'll chime in there. There was really only one day, and I think it was December 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And we actually knew 10 days earlier that that would be the day that would shut him down, if any day would shut him down. And just simply because of the gustiness of the winds. That was a record cold wave that moved north to south. And it was not going to be a tame one, not when you're dealing with record-breaking cold. So they had to deal with that. He knew he'd probably be grounded, but he was trying anyway. So like Tom was saying, he did his best, and he didn't get killed in the process. So kudos to him that he tried. But we basically told him what would be the wind direction, the speed, the optimal flight path to get ground going east, and what the temperatures would be. And he would make the decisions as to, when he was in the air, what could he tolerate? Because you could see him in real time with the telemetry coming in, going up, going down, trying to find that perfect match between not freezing himself to death, because he's doing this day after day after day in the 30s, the 20s, and the teens flying, and then also trying to get some forward momentum. So he was ultimately the one making those decisions. He had the information in advance, so he knew what he was getting into, but he made good decisions, because obviously this is an amazing record that's been established.
Jeff, how much were you kept in the loop about the conditions where your man was going? Did they tell you,
Well,
hey, 17 degrees, and you said, oh yeah, that's cool, go for it, man?
Yeah.
No, I'm certain that had I known about some of those conditions, I might have advised differently.
Right.
We had a discussion before he left about hypothermia and a few things like that, and I just felt like Harley knew what he was doing, and they wouldn't really need to consult with me on stuff like that. And I'm thankful that they didn't after the fact, but looking back and knowing some of the things that he did, the altitude he flew at, with the conditions, I might have recommended him, and I supplied him with some oxygen, that he actually used it. But so thankfully I wasn't there on the ground. I think I'd have been pretty nervous about some of that.
All right, fair enough. Harley, let's go back to, it doesn't sound like you're going to tell us any really deep, awesome stories. We're going to have to wait for the video. Is that correct? The film?
I'm sure we're going to give you some details tonight. I mean, as we get through the next.
I'm okay with it. Just the first, very, very first takeoff. I'm happy that we're kind of keeping that one a little bit quiet, but everything else is free game. So don't feel nervous about saying anything else.
You could just ask a question. I don't know. Did you ever had to make a landing in restricted airspace?
So I did not make a landing in restricted airspace. I did land at a Class D Air Force base with some F-35s flying by.
Wow. How did they greet you? Were they excited to see you? Oh, there's Harley. There's our buddy.
I like the way Greg likes to tell this story.
I heard they were inverted.
Well, if you just went for the jugular right there.
No. It's going to be a 2-hour show, into an hour, which isn't going to happen. Let's go, Greg. Tell us the story.
So, just to be clear, as a documentarian, I like the drama. I want as much drama as possible without anybody actually getting hurt.
You drama? No, you don't know drama. You're not drama.
And it's difficult because sometimes the drama's just not there, and then you end up with a mediocre film. But I knew within the first couple of days, up to this moment, I'm like, you know what, I'm good. Like, I don't need to worry. I had a full documentary 3 days in on this thing, like no problem. There's so much. And then he goes and he's flying some really, really tough conditions. I mean, if you look at the graph that we put online, I mean, he's bouncing the entire time. It's the worst flight graph I've ever seen. And so he ends up having to land, and he lands on a running field on an airbase with F-35s flying overhead. And I just, it was funny because as nervous as I was for him, because my dad worked for the Air Force, so I know that they don't take kindly to you landing in these places without prior authorization. But at the same time, I thought if they let him out, we've got an amazing story. It's just, when are they going to let him out, right? Because we're at the gate and we know he's in there. No one's telling us anything, but he's been met by a group of guys that had questions, and then when he came out, I'm like, this is gold. Like, it was just gold the entire time. Like, I'm so looking forward to watching this documentary, let alone editing it, because it's just like, it's going to be a joy.
Okay, I'm going to ask this very.
Dave, let's just help you a little with the timeline there, because so on the first day, you know, I think we made 300 miles, and so we made incredible. We even tried to get one very last flight in that, you know, we just didn't quite get to Gila Bend, which is where we were trying to get to, and so we had parked on the side of the road where I landed. And the next morning, you know, the winds weren't quite cooperating, but we were hell bent on making progress, even if it meant that we're only doing 3 miles an hour. And so the problem was, it was not an ideal day to fly. And, you know, I kept pushing. And the problem was, after 2 hours, I think we'd made barely 29 miles in 2 hours. By comparison to the previous day, in a 3-hour flight, we were doing 100 to 120 miles. So basically I was parked, but the problem, of course, was, you know, I had rotor coming off the mountains. So I couldn't get high. In fact, every time I tried to go high, I get parked and get blown backwards. So I was flying low to the ground. And eventually I crossed this road where I knew that, you know, I had to make a decision very, very soon after that, whether I could keep going, because there's no way for the crew to get to me on the next segment. I needed to get those extra 100 miles. And so I got about another, maybe 2 or 3 miles in, and, you know, I could tell straight away that it was getting very, very dangerous, very, very quickly. And if you look at the telemetry, you know, you can see I make a very clear decision that I'm going to make an emergency landing, where what I thought at that time was the municipal airport. I had totally blanked on exactly which airport I was going to, and I landed up going to the wrong one. But the bottom line was, you know, at that point, it really was the only safe thing left to do, and there was no way to take my hands off what was going on. So it was a tough day. I think in hindsight, had we maybe stuck the weather out till the afternoon, it would have been a better decision. But these guys know, right? This was a race every step of the way, and I wasn't satisfied with waiting for the best conditions. I was going to fight as long and as hard as I could until there really was no other option.
If you are just tuning in, we are with Harley Milne and his entire crew on his historic world record attempt to go across the entire United States from coast to coast. Right now we have 95 people that are watching the show, and we are going to have about 9 giveaways at the end of the show. There's no time limit on the show. So all the questions that have been answered, there's probably about 20 questions now. We're going to get to them, so keep asking your questions. Harley, when I fly for an hour, I'm getting exhausted. Okay. And when I fly for an hour and a half, I'm starting to think, my mind's starting to go in different directions. So 2 questions for you. How were you physically fit to do all this? Number 2, where was your mind when you were on these long flights all alone up there, thousands of feet above ground. How did you keep your mind focused and you didn't lose? Well, they didn't lose that focus, and they just said, "I got to keep going. I got to keep it." What were you thinking about? Were you listening to music? Were you just singing the ABCs over and over again? Where were you in your mind? And how? And here's another thing too. I talk about physically fit. My arms get tired like this. Okay, talk about how you went about these strategies, physical and mental.
So definitely that flight with the emergency landing, for me at that moment in time, was the most exhausting on my arms, because it literally, for 2 hours, I didn't take my hands off the toggles, or I'd very briefly bring it down for about 30 seconds to a minute before having to go back and grab it. So that for me was an incredibly exhausting on the arms. But, you know, the benefit of flying high is that you have the opportunity to rest. And most of the time, once I was sort of in the 5,000 or 6,000 feet, and in fact, a lot of cases even lower than that, by the time I got the flight deck all set up and looking at telemetry to help me make a decision of how fast to keep going, and feeling what the winds were telling me, whether I was trying to climb at 25 feet per minute or whether I was trying to climb at 500 or 600 feet per minute. So all of that was carefully sort of thought out and calculated to try and use the least amount of fuel on the climb. And so from a physical perspective, most of the time is really spent trying to fly the straightest line, looking at your flight path and to stay on it as much as possible. I had tried to rely on, I think I only tried to play music 5 or 6 times, and none of those times did it really work, because I had always tried to pull it up on like Sirius XM, and of course by the time you're 5,000 or 6,000 feet up in there, that all stops working.
It was the most part, your mind was very focused on, okay, what altitude should I go to next? Every few minutes, where am I at? How am I doing? Where's my ground crew? Where is my ground crew?
Yeah, I mean, for me, staying as close to my track as possible, because what I'd find is that every time I get distracted and, you know, try and, you know, do some live stuff or take some photographs, within a very short period of time, you're veering even a half a degree or 1 degree off your path. And, you know, so an interesting stat, I'm sure you have questions about my stats, but the actual, you know, straight line path, I was only about 4.5% total, which I'd have to look up the number again, but in terms of flying a total straight line versus how much zigzag, it was literally maybe an extra 40 miles of flying in zigzag in total across the whole country, which to me was a waste of at least an hour and a half of fuel. So we could have easily, you know, done a hell of a lot better. So that it's those kinds of things. Coming back to your question about fitness, the big thing that I did was, you know, carry as much fuel as I could. So I did several flights where I had almost all of the equipment with me, but I practiced a lot with putting in the 4.3 gallons of fuel and carrying close to that 90 pounds. So, and I did that for several weeks. And I flew mostly the Snake 18 while I was doing that early training. So I knew having the slightly bigger wing, I was going to do better. But, you know, the reality is, you know, taking off on the beach with that amount of weight and no wind. And I think there were only a couple of occasions where there was zero wind and, you know, it was a lot more work. But I felt like I trained hard, and I was worried that I was going to be underprepared. And I think I was adequately prepared. I would have liked to have been a little fitter.
Okay. Tom, was he a pain in the ass ever?
Not too much, I should say. I mean, he gets cranky at times, especially coming down between flights. It's focus, focus, focus. This is what needs done. Let's get it done quick. And if you're not there thinking ahead of what he's going to want, you know, it's time is time.
Time is money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Ruff?
Yeah, just real quick, in regard to that question, and a couple others too, in the time that I was with him for the whole 12 hours, you said, you know, was he a pain in the butt? No, actually, he was focused. The team knew what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And I can't imagine, and it's something that I wanted to say in the earlier part of the show, is this guy was a machine. I mean, I think the time that I was there, I went to bed somewhere around midnight. He went to bed probably around 1, and we were up at something like 6 in the morning. And he was out by 6:30, 7 o'clock. I mean, he was just so humble. I mean, so humble to his team.
That's awesome. Harley, you got to see Dave. Who else did you get to see that you weren't expecting to see while you were flying? And the team got to see Anthony Vella, which I know you've told me many times, Harley, he's your favorite YouTuber out there. So let's get that out of the way.
So I'm gonna mess this up, and my team has to help me out with this because I've my mind is, especially now, of course, as we're talking about it, my mind is all over the place. But the first surprise that I got was, I think, coming out of Arizona somewhere, and help me out, guys. I can't remember his name, and it's killing me right now. But I had basically landed out, a long way away from anywhere. My team, I mean, you got to ask some questions about that night, because the team typically worked 18-hour plus days between the 2-hour prep time in the morning, flying and chasing me all day and keeping things going, and then 2 to 4 hours afterwards fixing things. And we had one night where I didn't make my destination. I landed and had enough fuel, to keep the motor running until I unclipped, and then it died. That's how tight we ran things on occasions. And so that morning I took off, and I landed up being about 20 minutes ahead of Ray, and I landed, and this guy was there, and he says, "Hey, I was online last night and saw you were coming through." And so that was like 1 a.m. in the morning for him. And so he came and met me at the airport and said, "Hey, you're Harley, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I feel so embarrassed for not remembering his name right now, but that was the first. Say again?
Steve Hedberg.
Thank you, Steve Hedberg. So Steve had literally found out about us online and came out and met me at the airport. Totally, random thing, didn't happen. So it would just surprise the hell out of me. The second huge big surprise to me was, we were racing the clock to see if we could get one more flight in, and we were just on the edge of Texas and Louisiana, and we were like, okay, so where is the nearest place that we can get into Louisiana? It had been our goal for the day to get there, and we had about 40 or 50 minutes to make sure that we were on the ground before the end of civil twilight, so we didn't get disqualified. And we literally, Greg and Ray were there, and we're like, okay, right here, this is the airport. And so we load just enough fuel, and I'm going like a bat out of hell. And I'm once again, I'm so concentrating on getting there the straightest possible line I can. And the next thing, there's 2 paramotors up above the airport. And then the light bulb suddenly went on where, Mark and Elena had said, "Hey, as you come through Louisiana, we're right on your track." And the bell went on straight away for me. And I realized right then and there that it was Mark and Elena. And so I had to get on the ground pretty quick. So we didn't even really fly around much, but I got on the ground. Mark came in lane and gave me the high five. And that totally made my day, because we made the goal, and then this huge surprise of them actually being there. And I think the way Mark liked to tell the story was that they had been following, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's going to make it." And so they grabbed their paramotors and went to a nearby field that they fly from occasionally, and pretty much were following me almost real time, and came to the airport. They realized that's where my target was. And so they met me there. So it was incredible that they had followed me that closely to be there as I was coming in. So
what a morale boost that had to be for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I mean, at that point in time, we were like, okay, we've got over the hump now. Like, we knew the weather was going to start warming, and so, it was game on at that point. We were nothing was going to slow us down.
whoever made the decision to have the tracker, it was a great decision because that got all of us involved that couldn't be there. Thank you, Ray. That got involved. We were able to watch. We were cheering on from home. It was awesome to be able to see that. And for, not making a joke here. I joke around a lot, and this isn't a joke, but there was a fictitious character who decided to start running one day, and he ran across the country and he ran back and he ran, and by the end of it, he had this huge beard, and hopefully should be know who I'm talking about. And that's Forrest Gump. But in this movie, this fictitious character, he inspires all these people to start joining him. And in a way, you're almost that part. And kind of the funny thing is the ending at the very end, he just stops in the middle of the road and says, okay, I'm going home now. And when I watched, Cynthia was gracious enough to film the ending, and Harley landed, did a little interview with the newscast, and all their faces was like, all right, now what do I do? So coincides with that. It's funny because everybody here has spoken, even Dave has spoken about an experience of this mission, except for one person. And that's John Ripman riding, because he actually has a story as well. At the very end, John showed up at the beach. And John, what happened when you got to the beach?
Well, I wasn't quite sure when he was coming in. I was just getting reports. So I went up in the air and I started flying around, and it was really wonky down low. So I went up maybe 2,500, 3,000 feet. And I'll tell you what, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt normally, and I was pretty dressed up, and I'm up there and I'm freezing to death. I can't even feel my hands. And I'm like, where is this guy? I'm like, when is he coming in? I can't wait to greet him and fly in with him. So I don't know. I went down, I did a pass. I didn't see him on the beach. I climbed back up to 3,000 feet, didn't see him again. And I said, okay, I can't take this anymore. I got to land. I'm going to have to watch him come in on his own. And you know what? He deserves to come in on his own. He did this trip, and, let him take all the glory. And I landed, and it was about 30 or 40 minutes after I landed, he finally came in.
Wait. There's someone else there at the beach there with you before he came in.
Greg and Cynthia, you mean?
Before that, no, there was a beach patrol.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so the sheriff came. Well, about 10 sheriffs drove back and forth and didn't bother us. And then one came and said, you guys can't launch from here. And we're like, what? We got a guy coming in from San Diego. He's doing a world record. This is going to be in the Guinness book. I'm like, you got to let us land. He goes, listen, I can't do it. You can't take off from here. So we're ready to pack up all our gear. And about 10 minutes later, he comes back and he says, I'll tell you what, I'm leaving the beach. I didn't see nothing. He drives off the beach, the sheriff. I set my wing up. I take off, and I start looking for Harley. And like I said, I ended up landing. Harley came in, and he did a couple of passes. He was flying the American flag, and what an honor to see him pull that trip off and be there for history.
Ripman, you've been doing this for a while. Even Yankee Paramotor just put out a video saying, who is Ripman riding? Just yesterday. The feeling that you had, as far as you've done some epic flights of your own, you've shared those with us. How did this rank or compare to some of the stuff that you've been involved with paramotoring?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was just great to be a part of history, and I'm glad I was able to be there for him. I wish more local pilots would have been able to show up, but it was a rough day. There was another guy there, I believe the guy who made the throttle for Harley, his name is Pierce Osborne. He had a little issue taking off. It was quite windy. The wind was coming out of the west, probably 12 at least, and it was coming over these tall dunes, and it was a tough takeoff. But like I said, to be there and watch Harley come in, I feel honored to have been there. So thank you, Harley.
I'm really proud that Dave and John were both be able to be there and support Harley, and supporting, representing our Paramotor Nation, and just not just our Paramotor Nation, but all of the people out there that are. We use the word a lot, the para family. It is a group of family. It's great to be a part of this group. I want to start getting into almost about 25 questions that I see are building up on the chat. But, is there any other stories that you'd like to hear now before we wait till
there are loads of stories.
Talk about the maple syrup.
Yeah, I think we have to tell the maple syrup story.
Cynthia, tell the maple syrup story.
We might have to let, I don't know, Tom or Cynthia tell that story though.
Oh my gosh. So we were driving, we just stopped at a gas station, and once in a while I would go back to the RV to pick something up from the fridge or something. And this is I think it was day 3. So I'm not used to the RV life anyways. So I walk into the RV and there's literally a pool of maple syrup on the ground. And we were on the go. Like we were, it's go time. We got to catch up to Harley. And now there's a pool of maple syrup at the bottom of the RV. So Tom walks in and it's like, I can't even imagine what's going through Tom's mind, right? He's like, this girl is incredible. Like, I'm going to kill her. He said nothing. He's a quiet guy. Thank you, Tom. And we just, just grabbed rags and cleaned the whole thing.
Actually,
like,
she didn't grab rags first. She grabbed the camera and got footage of it, which is amazing to watch.
That's why that place smelled so good.
I am well trained, okay?
Yeah.
But it got to the point where, you wipe everything off and you think you're done. And it's like, all right, cool. It's good. It's not sticky. And then you get back in the RV and then you open up the siding, the electric siding, and it just leaves like a trailing trace of maple syrup. It's just like, oh my God.
So this all happened because the door wasn't latched. So
yeah,
it wasn't just the maple syrup; it was the eggs and everything else that came pouring out the fridge.
There's actually
there's a few things went flying, but maple syrup was the thing. So I learned that there's an extra latch. You don't just close the fridge; you close the fridge and then you click it in.
Cynthia, take maple syrup as far as for camping life, RV life. Take maple syrup on the floor over poop shoes any day.
All right, couple more questions here. So I do want to hear some stats. I think everybody wants to hear some stats. But while you're grabbing those, Harley, you're when you're going 80 some miles an hour, what was going through your mind besides a lot of wind? But I am the shit right now.
Dave early on had talked about going high, and I had some reluctance to want to go get that kind of altitude because you're become at the mercy of general aviation. And I tried very early on to get ADS-B in and out, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get the unit. It's ridiculously expensive, and so I had to go with a cheaper option. So I had some hesitation there, and also because of the weather year that we have, David said I had very small windows to work within, and so it was going to be cold, and we would have preferably have tried to go a few weeks earlier. Waiting until the end of November to go was a challenge on conditions. So I was concerned about going that kind of high, but that particular day we'd had a pretty good first flight, I think it was, or the first 2 flights that day was good. And I got up in the air and, I climbed through the bumps. It was, I don't know, I think I launched at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe it was 2:30 in the afternoon. So not a good time to be launching, but climbed all the way through it, and then started to catch that wind that David talked about. And I got to 8,000 or 9,000, which is what I'd typically been operating at. And, I was just watching the speed climb. And every time I watched that speed climb, I was like, I can do more. And so I just keep that climb rate going. And, in fact, that was one of those occasions where you just lean back in the seat slightly more, just increase your climb rate from 75 feet per minute up to 150 feet per minute, just by leaning slightly.
We had speed bar the whole time?
I did not use the speed bar at all. You got to remember, if you're in the paramotor seat for 6 to 7 hours a day for 9 days straight, you really can't be spinning it on the speed bar, even for short lengths of time, because you're wearing yourself out. Yeah. And we averaged, one of the stats is we averaged 3 to 4 flights per day. I think the shortest number of flights we did in a day was 3 flights.
All right, let's hear all these stats.
All right, yeah, I got them. All right, so basically the trip length was over 9 days, but the actual trip time was 8 days, 2 hours, and 8 minutes. The actual number of flight hours, so those 8 days, by the way, the clock started when I launched in San Diego, and it didn't end until I actually landed on the beach in Florida, right? So that's where those 8 days, 2 hours and 8 minutes come from. We actually only flew for 48 hours and 19 minutes. And I should probably also mention that these are unofficial stats, right? They still have to be verified, and that's going to take some time. Another stat was that we actually covered the whole trip in 22 flights. That was it. 22 flights. That to me is pretty unimaginable, that you can fly across the United States in 22 flights. So that was pretty crazy. We covered 2,145 miles. The total horizontal distance was actually 2,053 miles. So as you see there, there's a discrepancy of about 92 miles in total, which would be where you don't fly in a straight line, right? You take off, or you're spiraling to come in and land, or you're zigzagging or whatever in your first couple miles of takeoff and coming into land. The total height gain, the total altitude gain that we had was almost 30 miles, which would be like to the atmosphere and back 4 times. Burned about 58 gallons of fuel, which is not very much. So I thought that was pretty cool. Highest altitude was 12,444 miles, and that was on flight 6.
I'm sure you meant feet, not miles.
Sorry, yep, feet, sorry, yep. Highest altitude above the ground was actually on the very first flight, which was 10,184 feet. So, even on that 12,000 foot flight, we're only about 8.5, maybe 9,000 feet off the ground. Let's see, maximum speed, we clocked in at 144 kilometers an hour, or 89.5 miles per hour.
Wow.
We averaged about 44.39 miles per hour across the whole trip. So that's quite an impressive speed, really, almost 45 miles an hour for every mile that we flew, which I thought was pretty good. Our slowest flight speed was 14 miles per hour. The longest flight was 3 hours and 47 minutes.
Wow.
Shortest flight was 55 minutes, which was, of course, the last day coming in. All right, one more have I got here. Longest distance was 173 miles. And actually, my disappointment of that was we could very easily have pulled off 200 miles on a given flight. A few other pilots I've talked to have pulled off 150 pretty comfortably, but if I'd had that extra half an hour, I could very, very easily have clocked 200 miles on that one flight. Maximum lift, 906 feet per minute was that was pretty quick, because a lot of the climb rates were closer to anything from 25 feet per minute up to about 150 was about the average on the slow burn up, right? So you're gradually getting from whatever altitude you took off up to that 10,000 feet. And, I really wanted to limit the amount of fuel burn so that I had the tailwind as much as possible. And that's where the prop selection really made a huge difference. Helix gave us 2 props for that. One that was incredibly fuel efficient but had slightly less thrust, which is what we elected to go with to begin with. And then, of course, in Texas, on that windy day when I tried to go, actually the next morning when we tried to go, I broke that prop. And so I switched to the other prop and went to a smaller wing, which has more thrust, because I was also worried with that amount of weight on that Snake 18 that we wouldn't be able to get a decent climb rate. And in fact, that prop did exactly what they said it would do, which was a little less fuel efficient, but it gave us plenty of push to get to where we wanted to go. There's a couple of other stats, but nothing that interesting. I think the best day was day 3. We did it 384 miles in one day, and I think early on I had said that we would get 200 to 300 per day. I think our worst day was 175 miles. So that just kind of shows how it was both ways. And, when Dave called the wind and we took it, I mean, a 400-mile day is definitely doable if you've got the weather.
Amazing stats. I think there's one other world record that you set was the most expensive across the country too. I think that has to be acknowledged as well. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start asking all these questions. We're going to kind of rapid fire them. I'm guessing some of them may be in duplicates or some that you've already answered. So we'll kind of cipher through those as well. I do want to ask you one other question before we do hit that. And I'm going to warn everybody else that was involved with the trip. I want you to think about what the most memorable moment was for your trip, for this entire experience for you, watching Harley doing and being a part of this whole experience. So we'll come back to that in a second. But Harley, last day, you see the beach, you see the ocean in front of you. You see the beach coming up. You see the people starting to appear. Your crew, Ripa, the newscaster. Hold on one second, Ripa. What are your thoughts? These last few moments, you're dropping the flag out. What's going through your mind at this moment?
Yeah, so flying the flag, is always an honor, really. And that was the only secret I'd managed to keep through the whole trip. I spilled my guts a few times. Like, I had mostly said that we would try and get the trip done in 14 days, but my crew knew that I had set a personal goal of 10 days. And so, when I think once we hit, Alabama and we didn't quite make it into Florida, there's better pressure for me. I wanted to keep going. And it was a moment to just stop instead of just trying to get there and set the record. And, there's a bit of showmanship at stake here where we knew we would stop, give everyone the breather to get there and realize that, this was going to be the fastest crossing of the United States on a paramotor. And that clearly was a moment that everyone should have an opportunity to appreciate. And so that's largely why we elected to make those decisions. And, it wasn't the best weather. In fact, I was sort of riding this little bit of smoothness between the fog and the clouds that were there to try and get there. And it was not a great day to be flying, but I remember just sort of actually burning fuel, trying to give enough time for Ray to get to the beach, who's so integral in every takeoff and every landing, right? Talking to me on the radio, flying into a lot of unknown places. And, most people, Ripper was saying that, the winds weren't that great, but what looked like I was coming in for a final, I landed up actually aborting that landing and going around again, dragging the flag, behind me too. So I had all that additional drag that, we were worried about landing short in the water and then having all the rotor coming off. So, I'd had some time to think about it. And actually that last flight was quite relaxing for me. It sort of was becoming surreal, but the whole trip, I really didn't want to focus on, I might get there. It was really about doing the job and the work every step of the way. And the trip really wasn't over until we left that beach. And that's where the crew treated it the same way. From the time we got together, in fact, even before we got together, but from the moment we got together, the pieces of the puzzle just continued to naturally and organically come together. And while we all had very clear roles, I really didn't have to say very much. I would ask for things that I needed, but that's been my biggest reflection, was for a group of people who had never worked together before to come together so perfectly, organically. That to me was like, if I had been able to build teams like this in my professional world, I probably would be so wildly successful, I wouldn't know what to do with that. And these are all unpaid, volunteered people who just came together and just did it. I mean, they're all pilots, so they get it. I think that was very critical to what we're doing. And that's the part I continue to focus on. This, I was just the idiot flying. These were the guys that actually made this trip possible and successful and enabled me to get in that seat every day. And I wasn't going to let them down, even going down and getting hurt and breaking gear. I was not going to accept that kind of defeat. And so that was important to me.
They deserve a ton of credit. Okay, Harley, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just hit this button. The chat's not listening. Everybody else watching the show is not listening. Ray, he can't hear you. Tom can't hear you. Okay. Just between you and I. You're coming in. You're thinking, I better not botch this landing. Your boots. Okay, now you get me. Now we're talking just between your ears. Just thoughts going between your ears. Let's put all the other credit aside. Let's put that on the shelf for a second. Your boots touch the sand. The emotion. Okay, let's go back. And if Greg could hear us, he'd be saying, yeah, give me the emotion, give me the drama. What's the emotions going through your mind?
So that landing on my feet was a huge relief, because actually I had screwed up some takeoffs a few times, and but all my landings had looked good until Florida, and I had two where I just landed up going down on my knee, and on the two previous flights before the very last one coming into Florida. So I was a little like, oh my God, there's a bit of pressure going on here. Better not screw this one up. So relief more than anything else that I was on my feet and it looked okay.
Harley, if I may, can I show a short clip of you coming in, landing on the beach?
Sure.
Dave, I'm just going to share the screen. All right.
Yes, sir. Sorry about the technical difficulties there, guys. Go ahead.
All right. Can you see it?
Sure.
Go for it.
Right, here it goes.
Go ahead. Walk us through this, Harley.
Well, I was committed at this point, right? Just as you see, I made sure to stick it pretty quick, but this one I got the angle correct. The previous one I came in too flat with the beach, but as you see, not a lot of room. I wanted to make sure to keep the flag out the water and land there, and then try not to drop the flag. And I was actually proud of this moment. I managed to keep the glider up and kited it for a second before deciding to bring it down. So
you're showing off. I got you.
Like a boss.
Ray knew to get to me pretty quickly. We were worried about getting a gust of wind that was going to pull me over flat on my face, and the press was there, so we wanted it to look good, and that's part of being a paramotor pilot. As you do something like this, we want to be a good representation for what the sport is, and that was an opportunity to do that and do it well.
And I'm sure Anthony and Dave and Jeffrey all wish they could have been there for that moment as well. And I think all of us do. And, thanks for Cynthia for filming that. And, Ripa took some video, and I know Greg may have had a camera rolling too. So we'll all be able to relive those moments over and over again. Let's get to some questions in the chat. I think we've got about 30 questions now. So we're going to kind of rapid fire this. Okay. If we've answered the question, you can kind of just say, hey, we've answered that, or however you want to handle it. Okay. I'm reading these for the first time, so if there's foul language, it's not my fault. Brian Simmons, he was the first one, it looks like. Nope, Dave Trikefire said, Dave, you have no audio. Okay, we already passed that. All right, Brian Simmons says, Harley, what was your average altitude during your flight across the country, and was it as rough as you expected? So you talked about the altitude. Was it as rough as you expected?
Actually, I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't have any major shear layers, and that was precisely what Dave had predicted. So I was happy.
Mark H says your experience or impressions with the Corsair over the course of the trip.
I couldn't have been more impressed by that engine. I love it more and more every time I fly it.
Awesome. JB says, how did that Corsair work out? I think you just answered that question. Chris Fenimore wants to know, Harley, or says or suggests, Harley, you should do a coast to coast in a tandem. Is that feasible? I mean, it's a lot of time to be spending with somebody else, man. I don't know.
I don't know how you could call that a training flight for 48 hours.
Or stoning, you definitely stay warm.
That's good. All right, Mark,
You can answer that question.
Mark P asks, Harley, what radio gear did you use to communicate with your ground crew?
Yeah, actually, so that's a great question. So, you know, I knew that I needed aviation, 2-meter and cell phone coverage, and even connectivity down to the inReach and so forth. So, particularly as while crossing the Continental Divide, it was very important to make sure we had adequate comms and redundancy. And in fact, we had one occasion where the only thing that worked was sending texts through the inReach. So that's how carefully we planned to make sure we had everything. So Ray very early on made sure that the 2 meters are all working. Through Wisconsin Flight Sports, I had got the micro avionics in-helmet system. It did have to make some minor adjustments to get it to fit in my helmet correctly. But honestly, the being able to talk to Ray from 6,000 to 8,000 feet, I think on average about 5,000 or 6,000 feet, where I could call Ray and say, you know, hey, are you there? And I'm down to 30 or 40 minutes. This is where I'm going, was absolutely critical. And for me, it worked perfectly. I know for Ray, there were occasions I think he wanted to raise me like, where is he going? And him having to read my mind was probably much harder for him.
Yeah, there's a few times when he was over a mountain range in front of me and I knew the radio was just not going to work because he's so far away that we were having to just look at his telemetry coming in on the inReach, look at his altitude and his direction, and look at his pre-planned waypoints or airports or bailouts, and decide which one is he going to, which one does he have time to go to. And a lot of that would change minute to minute on which road I would take jumping off the interstate to try and make it to whichever one of those. I mean, there was never a dull moment in the chase vehicles. We were constantly trying to outthink where Harley was going to be able to go. Sometime
he landed and he was waiting, was it 2 hours for you guys to catch up with him?
Yeah, that was that in the mountains outside of Tucson. Wow. Landed at a guy's house on Miller's house right on top of a mountain outside of Tucson, and there's a whole story there. That was one of the best accidental landing locations of the whole trip.
And let me tell you, their chase vehicle can move.
It can stop too.
What did you do for 2 hours while you were waiting for them?
You know, Miller didn't come out until these guys started to show up. So actually, what was beautiful was seeing all the stars there. It was dead quiet out there, and I was very grateful that I'd chosen a good spot to land because there wasn't any fuel to go any further.
We're gonna keep moving on to these questions because we're coming up on a 2-hour mark here, and we still have 9 things to give away. I'm surprised no one's asked the question yet. Dave, what apps do you use to project weather? All right, we'll keep moving here. Don't answer that yet. Let's see if it comes up. CT Shoot Flyer says, is there a place I can see the whole flight path online?
Yes. So if you go to 50xchallenge.info, and then there's the live link for the inReach. If you click on that, that will actually show the entire path. I need to double check and make sure it's still there, but that will show the planned route and should actually show the executed route.
Okay. Anthony Vella wants to know, I guess this is for everybody, and you can quickly say a name, but who was your favorite paramotor YouTuber that you all met whose name was neither Mark or Elena?
Ripman.
Ripman.
You guys rock.
It's too close between Ripper and Trike Fly for me. Sorry.
If Anthony's not watching still, please someone send him that small segment of the show.
I don't know. At what point did Anthony even come out? I know I didn't see him from 12,000 feet.
No, we met Anthony.
Shots fired.
That was awesome. Anthony and Clint and a few of the other guys were there, just getting ready to take off, and it was a surreal moment. I've spoken to those guys so much. You know, I talked to Anthony probably once a week or so. And yeah, it was really quite surreal to finally meet those guys and finally meet a lot of people that we've actually spoke to like this, but then meeting them in person, like, you know, Ripper and Dave and Mark and Elena as well. Like, it's just like, it's an interesting experience to meet somebody who's already a friend, but now you're actually meeting them in person. Yeah, really cool.
When I'd Willie to ask this question, and this was already answered, what was the average mile per hour and altitude? Mark and Elena Honeycutt say, how did Harley find Dave, the NWS man?
Dave, the
National Weather Service.
Oh, yeah. So I recall Dave being interviewed on the Aviator show. At least I think I got that right. And Dave got trained right about the time that I was at Aviator. So I don't think we actually met at Aviator, but I think he was on the show. At least that's how I remember it.
Okay. Bob McFly says, did Harley break any records?
I think we set some records. How about that?
A couple of records there. Okay. Is Harley comfortable and competent with thermals and turbulence? Does he just climb up above it all and keep moving? Because I don't think I could do it. That is from...
If he wasn't competent and comfortable, he is now.
Yeah, I mean, as part of preparation for this trip, right? Remember, I went and did an SIV with Andrew Fuller at Skylab, and that gave me some confidence that my reactions were correct for some bad weather and some bad things that could happen. Definitely, there were some flights where I was like, wow, this is not only bad weather, maybe some of the toughest weather I've been through, but I endured it longer than anything else that I had ever done before. But yeah, I have a remarkable comfort today with poor weather that I've never had before. But I don't think that's any excuse to go and fly it. Still make better decisions. Yeah, this was a race. We're trying to be successful and win, and we did push the odds. But I think generally, we want to be safe and make better decisions.
All right, you should mention that because the next question comes from York Yankees Garcia. Harley, did you have any situations close to you? Let me say that again. Did you have situation close to the SIV you did at the weather that you made? I think what he's trying to say is, did you have any situations?
I know Jordan, and actually we were there at the airfield today where I met him. And so the short answer is that I was exceptionally impressed with how well the Dudek Hadron 3 and the Snake handled some exceptional weather. And not once can I say that I was ever faced with a situation where I thought the wing was going to totally collapse underneath me. And even in the most extreme weather, the wing really did absolutely perform. I never felt unsafe in terms of what the wing was doing. So I really loved Dudek wings that I was flying. That Hadron 3 was exactly what I had hoped it would be. Maybe I could have gone a little bit smaller, but honestly, it was perfect.
Awesome. This is a great question. I like this one. Clarky flies. When Harley was cruising at about 90 miles per hour and you guys were in the chase vehicles, did you ever think about what you would say if you got pulled over? What a great question. Who wants to take that?
Well, actually, on that day, we knew that there was no chance of catching him until long after dark anyway. That was the day we met Anthony Vella. So we stopped, talked to Vella for about 10 minutes longer than we intended to, and then did the speed limit all the way to Texas.
Yeah.
There was really no reason to rush. But on many other days, there was reason to rush. And by the grace of God, we made it across this country quite possibly in the fastest time possible, chasing a aircraft. I'd say if I was being pushed, I was probably doing 15 mile an hour over the speed limit most of the time. And not once did I have heights behind me. Yeah, I tried to run over Dave Ruff at least once.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but when we got on the highway, I was in an Audi A6, and you were pacing me, and I was doing about 95, buddy.
All right, we're gonna keep moving here. Ray Morgan, why did you go this time of the year compared to some of the other times, spring, summer? I'm assuming that had to do with the weather.
A lot of it had to do with the weather. We were going to get one cycle sort of between November and early December, and another cycle in March. For a number of reasons, I didn't want to go in March next year. And I would say, if we couldn't have got a better weather cycle if we had tried for this time of year. And whoever tries to go do this again next, I hope that they get even better weather and make 8 days look silly, and when they do it in 4 or 6 days.
I'm gonna have to say to John and Dave, we can't take any more questions at this point. We've got 30 more questions that have now come in. We're gonna be here all night into the morning if we keep doing this. So we're gonna do an after show after this. If you want to come in and ask anybody any questions, you're welcome to do it there. But we'll go ahead and get the rest of these questions that have come in, but don't take any more. Mike P said, and let's answer these quick. Mike P says, did Harley use any powered heated wear? Okay. How could you?
Yeah, so I had a heated vest and heated gloves.
There you go. Kyle O'Glee says, Harley, any nodding off? Suddenly got to take a crap experiences or emergency?
No, it's too cold. Everything was frozen solid.
He says, you use any trimmers or speed bar?
I was almost always trimmed out. From within the first 1,000 feet, I would trim out as much as I could go to still get good climb. No speed bar.
Okay. Chris Fenimore says, did Harley fly with a 5-gallon tank and a camel pack?
No camel pack, and the total fuel was 4.3 gallons.
Okay. Shandor asks, did you reach your $2,200 goal? $1 for every mile fundraiser for Resurgence PPG?
I think we're really close. I checked earlier today. We're a little over $1,800. So, yeah, keep giving PPG, Resurgence PPG. We've got to get this. So we're very close, and please help.
Very good. Roger R says, was there any time or times during your flight that you ran into turbulence bad enough that you called it and landed, or really made you seriously consider it?
I mean, I wasn't going to take no for an answer, and I never, only on the emergency landing, right, was the one time it was absolutely necessary, but I was very fortunate. I think things went very, very well.
Mark Drozd, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. What type of clothing was used to keep Harley warm? 17 degrees must have been freezing for hours at a time.
Yeah, so definitely the winter flight suit that I got from Blackhawk was instrumental, and I laid up as thin as possible as I could go with the maximum warmth. So I had leggings and like a pair of tracksuit pants underneath it that made it possible to go. My toes got cold on a couple ones, so it would have been nice to have heated socks. It's the one thing that could have gone a little bit better, but yeah, you grin and bear through. I didn't know it was 17 degrees there one day. I thought it was 25 and felt about the same.
John Wayne, I want to thank you so much for the donation to the show, $49.99, John. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Shandor asked, did Harley ever encounter a strong headwind he couldn't avoid?
Yeah, Gila Bend by far had me stuck pretty solid, and getting out of the hole in Texas after the amazing day was absolutely hard work for 40 miles, 2 hours to get there. But, slowest speed was 14 miles an hour ground speed. That's still pretty decent.
Harley, as we're going to start getting to some of these other questions here, if I can kind of weed through them for you, I might answer them. And if you want to say anything more than that, just cut me off. Ray Morgan asks, is this the first cross country across the U.S. or just the fastest? I'd say the both.
It's the fastest. It's not, there are some other claims to have crossed the whole of it or almost the whole of it.
I like this question from Shandor. How long did you sleep after your final landing?
Not very much. We had so much work the next day, and the team honestly didn't stop working for 2 more days after I was finished doing it. Right, we had to do our submissions to FAI and so forth. So R&R really didn't start until Friday this week.
Okay. Jared Kelton says, and you already answered this, but you can answer this again. What wing did you use?
The Hadron 3 20 meter and the Snake 1.2 18 meter.
Ray Morgan asked, did the rules require you to take off from your last landing site?
The rules did not define the specific site had to be exactly the same, but you have to make sure that you're not, extending your or shortening your distance.
Tim Gaskins asked, what type of flight suit or gloves, etc., did Harley use during the flight?
The Blackhawk winner's flight suit, and I don't remember the brand of the heated gloves.
I think that's all the questions. Harley, have you flown since you landed?
So that's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing because we've tried to make it happen, but actually I had approval yesterday from the tower at Key West to actually take off, and unfortunately we couldn't get access to the airfield. There was some other concerns that would stop us, but so it hasn't happened. Even this morning down at Aero Light down in Miami, I got to hang out with Jose very briefly, and we got to see a whole bunch of other people fly for the first time. So that was close enough for me.
Okay. I would have to imagine, like, I don't even want to touch another paramotor for
you ask Ray, right? Every day
No, he's itching to fly again, and we could make it happen, but there's other stuff we've been doing, having fun. So
you got to be a celebrity. You got to do the ticket taper and all that stuff. All right. John Ripman Ryden.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
We've got 85 entries into the wheel.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So here's the very simple rules of this, because we're going to move this quickly so that we're not all exhausted here.
Dave, here's what I suggest. A lot of people probably left. If they come and watch this again and then claim the prize, you probably should give it to them, because otherwise you're going to be going through this, respinning it.
Let's do this. Harley and Greg, if you could just say right now, and if someone would mind typing this into the chat, if you win one of the 8 prizes from Harley, how should they reach out to you to claim their prize?
They can direct message me through Facebook.
Okay. And Greg?
For me, direct message or greganthonyharris@gmail.com. It's on my website as well, so they can just reach out that way.
Very good. And again, just like all of our sponsors, please support Greg on his website with these amazing limited edition prints. They're gorgeous. I'm so glad I have one. All right. So let's say what we're doing here. Harley, why don't you say the order? Why don't you'll list off, this is the first prize, the next prize, and then we'll write it down here. I'll write it down and we'll spin the wheel each time. So Harley, what's the first prize?
So I have one of the 50X t-shirts. There are only 20 made, and I have a small and a medium. So whichever one they want first.
Start with the small. If it doesn't fit you, you should, maybe find someone, a friend. Yep. Dave's wearing his small right now. All right, go ahead, John. Spin away. Does it say crew on the back?
Nope.
Eric Lear.
No more crews.
Congratulations, Eric Lear. If you are in the chat, just say hi and say thank you or whatever you want to say. That's awesome. Eric Lear won a small shirt.
So I don't lose the names. Do I hit close or remove? If I lost all these names, I'd cry.
I'll just remove.
Yes.
Just Eric.
Okay.
Who does it? Congratulations, Eric.
Next.
All right, on Harley. You want to do the medium shirt?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do it.
Okay. For the medium 50X challenge shirt.
Oh, no, Walter.
This is going to cost you money. Walter, congratulations. That's going all the way to Australia.
All right. That's cool.
Next.
Very cool. Send him one of my stickers while you're there.
Size medium is going to look great on him.
That's right, Anthony. All right, what's the next prize there?
Harley.
Let's see here. I think we've got a Blackhawk t-shirt.
Blackhawk shirt. What size is this Blackhawk shirt?
This is a large.
Oh, that should fit. All right.
All right, you ready?
Fire away, Johnny. Walter, you'll take that too small and you'll like it.
Jerry D'Elia.
Canada.
From Canada. Wow, you're going all over the world, Harley.
By the way, that's Harley's next challenge. Everybody, he's actually going to fly and deliver each one of these prizes.
Okay, next, Harley.
All right, then we got an XL Blackhawk shirt.
Here we go.
This one is the larger.
Jared
Kelton.
All right. Jared Kelton. So make sure you're reaching out to Harley, all of these people through Facebook Messenger. All right. What do you got next, Harley? You want to do a hat? We got a hat. We got 2 hats, right?
Let's go with the Corsair hat next. We've got 2 of them.
Corsair. All right. We'll do them back to back.
Rokon.
All right. Rokon, Montana. All right. Very good. Rokon, Montana, congratulations. Next one. And this is for another Corsair hat. Kevin Collins. Congratulations, Kevin. All right, we got 2 more. From
we've got a Corsair t-shirt.
Guys, go for it. And again, for anybody that is watching, if you could go on, Harley, why don't you mention also where they can go ahead and Ray Morgan. Hold on one second, John. Ray Morgan wins the shirt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got one more prize here in just a second. That's a Corsair shirt. Harley, can you mention where someone who can go ahead and support the cause for Resurgence PPG can make a donation to hit $2,200?
Yeah, so on 50X Challenge on Facebook, you should see the donate button there for Resurgence, and we've put it up a couple times. But if you can't find it, just go to resurgenceppg.com and do your donation there and just let us know.
There you go. All right, what's the last prize from you?
We've got the, let's see, a Helix t-shirt. It's an large.
Large Helix. All right, who's going to win the last one from Harley? Spinning. Scott Julius. Congratulations. All right. So for Eric, Walter, Jerry, Jared, Rokon, Kevin, Ray, and Scott Julius, please reach out to Harley Milne on Facebook Messenger for that prize. Now, Greg Anthony.
Hey, quick question. Hey, Harley, do you remember something about the boots? Do you have access to those?
No, those are still in California.
Okay.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So those are still sitting in California. I took you $20. So as soon as I get back to California, they're on the way to you. Do you want them signed or not?
Well, what I was thinking, if you want to sign those, and we could give those away.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that.
Dave, do you want to do that here, or do you want to do that for the Christmas thing?
We'll do it next week on the Christmas thing.
You bet.
Really cool to do. We spread Harley's message one more week out too. Is that cool?
Absolutely. That's what I'm thinking.
All right, very good. Now, Greg Anthony Harris, we have these limited edition prints, right?
Yes, sir.
Just like this guy right here. Got mine. So the winner of this will get a choice of the 5 prints that we showed earlier in the show, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And it can be autographed as well?
They won't be autographed, but I can arrange something.
You can send a beverage napkin with your.
Yeah, I'll sign a napkin, and we'll figure it out.
John Ripman Ryden, would you mind sharing your screen, and let's find out who that winner is. By the way, I'm going to put in the chat right now the meeting ID and the password. So what did I just press? I don't know. Okay, I think I did it. I think I didn't end the show. Good. So if you want to start logging in, you can. I'm not going to let you in until the show is completed and over, which will be in just a couple minutes. But that way you can at least start jumping in. But this is for...
Just before I forget, as soon as you spin this, I've got one other person that I need to mention before the show's over. So finish spinning this, go away, and then I've got one person to talk about.
You got it. Go ahead, John. The winner is, I just saw his name in the chat, from North Royalton, Ohio, Jared. I can't pronounce your last name. I've always tried.
Sausagin.
Good. Jared, congratulations. And Jared was in the chat saying congratulations to everybody with that one. That was so cool. I'm so excited for him.
Excellent.
Good. In fact, you know what? Maybe Jared may come down and pick it up here. We could do that.
We're going to be in Ohio in February. So
Yeah.
maybe you can actually hand deliver that one.
Yeah. So Jared, if you want to come down in February and pick it up, or Greg can send it to you, whatever you want. But please, everybody, please go to greganthonyharris.com and check out the amazing things that Greg's doing over there too. Support him. He's been just entertaining us and doing so much for us. So we really appreciate that. Harley Milne, you had someone you wanted to mention.
Yeah, so I'd be totally remiss if we didn't talk about Leah Cutula, who, you know, when we're talking about creating records and to actually go do this, Leah pulled out all the stops to work with FAI and NAA and the US Ultralight Association, as well as Jeff Gorn with the US PPA. Without Leah Cutula, we wouldn't have actually even had the ability to create the records and set them. So that she was absolutely essential in the 2 weeks leading up to us doing the trip. So thank you, Leah. I'd be totally remiss if I'd forgotten.
Awesome.
She's an awesome lady. Just turned very old yesterday. Happy birthday to her. Sorry. She gives me a ton of credit.
23, I think she turned.
47, I said.
Oh, you are a dead man.
She's not even here to defend herself.
Gives me a lot of crap. Sorry, I'm going to edit this out.
Shots fired again.
I can edit this video before she sees it too. So, all right. I want to go.
I'm recording it, and she just got it.
So for Jeffrey, Dave, Anthony, Greg, Cynthia, and the Pierce men, and then we'll finish with Harley. Any last thoughts of this trip? Anything? Your moment of joy that you said, I'm so glad I was a part of this. Why don't we start with Jeffrey? He's been quiet and haven't been able to include it in too much. I do see people, by the way, too.
Well, I was just honored to get to know Harley on his first trip and become friends with him. And I think the most memorable moment really was being invited to be a part of this when Harley asked me to be a part of it. And I thank him for that. So it's been a thrill the whole way through.
Awesome. How about you, Dave?
I have to echo what Jeffrey just said. I mean, there is not one prima donna in this team. Everyone was very unassuming. They're supportive of Harley. They were supportive of one another, and they were professional the whole way. This is the best team that I think anyone could ever have. And I echo what Harley said. It was just an honor and joy to be part of it.
Awesome. Anthony Dalton.
For me, I mean, it was a great experience, obviously, an amazing feat. For me, I really enjoyed having Thanksgiving at my house with all these, look at this. We got a ton of people together and from all over the world, and everybody got together and had a nice meal. And I think it was Greg and Cynthia's first Thanksgiving. So it was pretty cool. And Cynthia, Chi-Chi says hello.
Oh my God, I miss her so much.
There's a story behind
Cynthia, why don't you go ahead to the next one? Why don't you tell us what your moment was?
For me, I think it's just the collection of people that we met. I'm a people person, and I love meeting passionate people and getting to meet all of you guys. Like now I can actually say that I've met so many awesome people that we've been in contact with this whole time. So that and the other people that we met along the way as well, like not just the YouTubers and stuff like that, but meeting awesome welcoming people. That was a huge one for me. And I'll second everybody else when they're saying just the team, the way that we came together. And I really see that we each kind of played that respective role. And like we all kind of fit together with like a puzzle, it's like nobody really stepped on each other's toes, and we each had a very crucial role to make this trip, this event kind of whole. So I think that's what marked me most.
Awesome. How about you, Greg?
The drama. It was just raining from the sky like gold. It was amazing. You know, usually on things like this, if you see documentaries of things like this with teams like we have, at some point during the documentary, it's usually just after halfway through, somebody falls out with somebody else in the team, and then there's a bunch of drama, and then they make up at the end and blah, blah, blah. But I just knew, and that's a nice dynamic actually to have as part of a documentary, as part of the story arc. And I knew quite early on that just wasn't going to happen. Like I was like, who's going to fall out with who? And it just didn't happen. Like we got on like a house on fire. Hanging out with Ray was one of my highlights. Just seeing how much beef jerky we could eat in a 9-hour period was awesome. Like, yeah, it's just so much fun hanging out with Ray. Such a patient guy, funny guy. I couldn't think of a better person to spend 9 hours a day in a truck with. So that was cool too.
I want to tell you this, Greg, and maybe I shouldn't say anything, but there were bets on who was going to fall out with who in this trip, and most of the bets were on Cynthia and Greg falling out with each other, having enough of each other.
You know, we did separate them during the course of the day, right? We put Cynthia in with Tom, and so we kept their relationship together.
Greg, I need to hand you $20 back. I couldn't start an argument with Tom. I'm sorry. He wouldn't start an argument. He's too nice of a guy, so I'm gonna have to give you $20 back.
Yes, okay.
I second that with you, Dave. Like I think if there was a fallout, it's probably between Tom and I, but I'm not even aware of it because he's so quiet.
Tom, what was your moment in this trip? What was the thing you'll take away the most from this?
I can't really pin it to a specific moment. It was just the entire journey, coast to coast. First time for me seeing most of this part of the country, and just being able to do it with this amazing team. Even Cynthia, we actually got along really well throughout the entire trip. And it was just a joy going through this whole experience and getting Harley across the coast, setting this record that's just begging to be beaten by the next person out there.
Crew Chief, Ray Pierce.
Well, to be honest, most of the trip from coast to coast was a blur. It was just concentrating on one moment to the next, take what happens, make the best of it, and go just a little bit farther, a little bit faster. So the first time I really got to stand there and reflect on it was standing on the beach. And just like Harley, when it was over and we were standing there, it was one of those tear up moments in life that it hits you hard. It nails you right where it counts. And that's what's going to stick with me. And since then, I've been able to reflect back on some of the journey, but the one that's always going to be forefront in my mind is standing there in St. Augustine on the beach when he came in and that flag hit the sand. It was all over.
Harley, Milne, you've been very gracious. You've talked about that this was a team effort. But for you, the person who the dream started with, what was your moment?
I still can't believe I actually did it and made it. And I just, for me, this has always been about the team, and we were a team, we are a team, and we showed what can be done with a paramotor. I have some ideas of how not only should someone else try and fly it, we firmly believe that somebody else could do it in 6 days or less, with the perfect weather and the right planning and the right team. Nothing would be a bigger honor than seeing someone else beating this record. But I think one of the big things is this could become a race. Teams or individuals with different brands and different products could race across the country like a rally. That would be huge. And I think it's something as a sport we should think about doing. So I I don't want to think about it too much because I don't want it to be over yet. And we've had some R&R, and it's been incredible to spend some time with Ray and his family and with Tom, and just, you know, take a few moments. It's the first time we've been able to do that in a couple of months. But I think it's just super exciting that, you know, we had the whole paramotor community, you know, along the way who said, wow, I wonder if you can actually pull this off. And then every mile we did, more and more people, when, you know, they just, I got calls, texts, messages, you know, every inch of it, right? You must have called me 4 times, David, along the trip. We're just going like, we're so proud of you. We're so glad you're doing this. Keep going. And really that was a big part of the inspiration. I didn't want to let anybody down, and I'm so glad I didn't. And I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity. And, you know, you know, people like Leah, the whole team, the people that came and met us along the way, people that helped us out. We haven't talked about things that we broke and spare parts and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, you know, Mike Robinson really did pull out all the stops at Blackhawk. Corsair, Evelyn talked to me every day, like, is everything okay? We had more spare parts for the engine that we never did need. And it was just a huge testament that we had the right product for doing this to get across the country. Helix, what they just, you know, I'm a relatively unknown person. Helix went out and figured out what was the right product for me. And then working with Paradrenaline to get those wings. I mean, everybody made this happen. This is really a testament to the Paramotor Nation, the community that we are, and how aviators come together to try and do these extraordinary things, and how we bring out the best in each other. And so, you know, all I can do is thank everyone for allowing me the opportunity to be the guy in the seat and to get across the country. And, you know, I'm so grateful to my team, and, you know, it's been an absolute honor to have these guys help me succeed.
Thank you. I want to first of all thank everybody that was watching the show and still sticking around here. Thank you all for spending the last 2 hours with us and hearing this incredible story. The people who donated to the show, Jared Kelton, thank you so much for your donation to the show. I really appreciate that. Our sponsors, you said it, Our Paramotor Nation. That's why we named it. You know, it's people like you and who this show was dedicated to, Lori Kadakis. You know, people that put themselves out there. It's through your experience that that the news comes up and we can say, that's what I do. What that guy's doing, I do that. Maybe not as far as him or as fast as him, but yeah, that's what I get to do. And so you represent us. And I'm sure I'd like to think that Lori's looking down right now, smiling and saying thanks for keeping that spirit alive. I want to thank everybody else. Ray and Tom Pierce, Greg Anthony Harris, Cynthia LeCompte, Anthony Dalton, Jeffrey Lee Miller, and Dave Wirt for joining us on the show tonight. You guys were incredible. Thank you for sharing your lives and your story with us. I'd say this is probably one of the most memorable, wonderful shows I can remember. We've had some amazing shows lately. This one will stand out. Well, another record, the longest show for Our Paramotor Nation, you know, and want to celebrate this Paramotor Nation with everybody. And that's what next week is about with our Christmas spectacular. We gave away a lot of prizes tonight. We're going to give away a lot more next week as well. So please tune in next week. If you'd like to ask anything of the group, I put the chat in there. If someone could put the meeting ID and password in again, if not, just scroll up and you'll find it, and you can show your appreciation and the love to Harley and his crew. I'm going to ask all of you to go ahead and mute yourselves and stop video, and we'll go ahead and do our outro video. And other than that, we're going to see all you guys next week. Appreciate it. We'll let everybody in here in just a second as well. Maybe I can do it right this time. I don't know if that's possible or not. We'll see. Give me just a second here. There we go. All right, guys. Have a good week. Have a great night. Thank you guys so much. You were wonderful to have on tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this episode of Our Paramotor Nation. We would like to invite you to join us in the after show, as the Zoom meeting ID and password will appear in the chat momentarily. Be sure to check out our website and see all of the upcoming shows, links to all of our sponsors' websites, and so much more information for you to use. And again, we would like to thank our sponsors: Wicked Wings Logos, Lone Star Paramotor, PPG Lights, Aviator Paramotor, PPG Smoke, Skylab SIV, Fly PPG, Fly My PPG, Paraswag, Wisconsin Flight Sports, One Up Adventures, and ParamotorProps.com. And thank you again for watching the show tonight. We will see you next Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time for the next episode of Our Paramotor Nation.